everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Brooke and this is my first topic video. So I want to start off by telling you about why I'm here and what this channel is about. So for years I lived in silence. I believed the lies that abuse was something that happened to other people. It couldn't be me. I couldn't be a victim of abuse. It couldn't happen to someone like me. I believed I was alone. I believed that no one would really understand. And that silence, that secret that I lived in, almost destroyed me. But for 3 years, I have been living in freedom. So 3 years ago, I made one of the hardest decisions, but the best decision of my life. I chose freedom. And now I'm here using my voice to help others find theirs. This channel exists to break the myths surrounding abuse, to shine a light on the darkness of abuse. Because what I've learned is that when there's darkness, that's where negativity and danger and abuse thrive. And when we bring it to the light, that's when we expose things and the truth comes out. If we speak the truth and we bring it to the light, that's only when the healing can begin. In each video, I'm going to tackle the lies the world tells us about abuse. I'm going to counter them with what science says the truth is about abuse. And then we're going to talk about what God says about it all, and what He calls us to do about it. Today, we're starting with one of the most dangerous myths of all time. The belief that abuse is rare, that it isn't common, or that it only happens to certain types of people. I'm going to break down this myth using what I call the 3 W's: what the world says, what science says, and what God says. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this myth that abuse is rare is not only harmful, but false. And then we're going to talk about what we're called to do about it and how we can make a difference. So if you're ready, step into the light with me and let's dive in. Alright, so let's dive in. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about what the world says. The world tells us that abuse is rare, that it only happens in certain neighborhoods to certain type of people. The world whispers that if you're educated, if you're wealthy, if you go to church, if you have a good job, if you come from a good family, then abuse just doesn't happen to people like you. The world says that victims are easy to spot, that they're the broken ones, the weak ones, or that they're somehow different from the rest of us. This narrative is everywhere. It's in the surprise look when someone comes out who was, successful, and they come out about abuse, and people look at them shocked, like, no way, this couldn't have happened to them. Or it's in the comment section that asks, why didn't she just leave? It's in the silence at family gatherings when this topic comes up and makes everybody super uncomfortable and they pretend it's not happening. The world creates this false picture that abuse is an outliner. It's a tragedy that happens to other people in other families and other communities. And this myth is one of the most dangerous because abuse thrives in silence. It's one of abusers' greatest allies because when we believe that abuse is rare, then we stop looking for it. We stop believing survivors, and we stop having conversations that could save lives. I know, as a survivor myself, that abuse is super common, that it's happened to many people. I've joined many support groups where you hear from very rich families to very poor families to very powerful women to all sorts of women. And the one thing that we all have in common is that abuse is way more common than what we talk about. And so that's one of the reasons I'm creating this channel, is to break the myths on abuse and to shine a light on the truths. So let's talk about what science says about it. Okay, so we talked about what the world said, that abuse is rare. Now let's talk about the data. Let's talk about what science says about it. So according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact sexual violence, or intimate partner stalking in their lifetime. That's not rare. That's millions of people. The CDC reports that more than 43 million women and 38 million men have experienced psychological aggression by an intimate partner. That's emotional or mental abuse. So we're not talking about just some isolated incidents here and there. We're talking about a millions of people epidemic. And here's where that myth really gets shattered, because abuse crosses every demographic. It happens in wealthy neighborhoods and in poor neighborhoods. It happens to people with PhDs and people with high school diplomas. Like I was saying, in the abuse support groups that I've joined, there's women from all different backgrounds. There's no one consistent area that this happens to. It can happen to anyone, and it is happening to everyone. It happens in churches, it happens in military families, in corporate boardrooms, and in rural communities. It's really all over us. And yet we still tend to turn a blind eye to it as the world. The World Health Organization calls intimate partner violence a global health problem of epidemic proportions. 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence. So those are numbers we can't ignore. That's 1 in 3 women worldwide. That means that somebody you have met has experienced abuse. More than one person you have met has experienced abuse. Science shows us something crucial, that abuse thrives in silence. The less we talk about it, the more shame surrounds it, and the more it perpetuates. It's a cycle. If we don't talk about the abuse, if we pretend it doesn't happen, then the survivor stays silent, then the abuser stays thriving. We create the perfect condition to continue the cycle unchecked. So now we know that it's actually happening everywhere to so many people. And science has proven that in statistics and data over and over again, that this is something we need to be concerned about and something we need to fight against. So again, this is why I'm creating this channel, because I want to break the myths of abuse and shine a light on the truth. Now let's talk about what God says about it all. Okay, so the world tells us that abuse is rare. Science tells us that it's not rare and that it's happening worldwide to millions of people. Now let's talk about what God says, because this is where we all find our calling. In Ephesians 5:11, it tells us, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So God tells us to expose them, not ignore them, not to pretend that they don't happen, not to not talk about them, not to maintain comfortable silence, but to expose them. God doesn't tell us to turn a blind eye or to evil, or because it makes us uncomfortable or makes us feel, uncomfortable to talk about. He doesn't tell us to protect the reputations of other people, because if people knew they were abusers or survivors, then they might be judged. He calls us to bring all this darkness into the light. He calls us to expose them. Throughout Scripture, we see God's heart for the oppressed, the vulnerable, and the hurting. In Psalms 83, 3-4, it says, defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. Rescue the weak and the needy and deliver them from the hand of wicked. It's not a suggestion. It's a command. We're called to be defenders, rescuers, voices for those that have been silenced. Jesus himself consistently stood with the marginalized, the hurting, those whom society overlooks or condemned. He broke social conventions to bring healing and dignity to people others wanted to ignore. When we perpetuate the myth that abuse is rare, we're not just being naive, we're failing our calling to expose the darkness and defend the vulnerable. We're allowing the evil to hide in plain sight. God calls us for something better. He calls us to courage, to be truth-telling, to be safe people for survivors who need our help, to creating communities where abuse cannot thrive because we look away. Instead, we look to it, we look at it, and we expose it. We're there for survivors. We're supporting them. We're believing them. We're listening to them. This is what God calls us to do, to seek out the evil and to expose it. We're not going to let it hide anymore. We're not going to be ashamed of our stories or ashamed of what happened to us. We're going to speak the truth, and we're going to let evil come into the light. All right, so we learned what the world says. The world says abuse is rare. We learned what science says. Science says it's very common, happening to millions of people. And we learned what God says. God calls us to expose it, to bring it to the light. So the truth is that abuse is common. It's happening in your community, maybe in your church, possibly someone you know and love, or possibly to you yourself. The world's myth that it's rare only serves to protect the abuser and isolate the survivors. But we don't have to accept the world's narrative. Science gives us the data and the statistics to understand the scope of this crisis. And God gives us our calling to do something about it. We can break the silence. We can educate ourselves. We can believe the survivors. We can create a space where people feel safe to speak their truth because they know that we'll listen, we'll believe them, and we won't judge them. We can be the ones who refuse to let darkness hide anymore. So, if you're a survivor watching this, I want you to know I've been there and that you're not alone. You're not the exception. Abuse happened to me and it happens to millions of other people. What happened to you matters. What happened to me matters. And we deserve support. You deserve support, healing, and freedom. And if you haven't experienced abuse, then I'm asking you to be a part of the solution. Learn the signs. Listen without judgment. Speak up and shine a light. Because that's what we're called to do. If this video resonated with you, please share it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content about breaking the myths about abuse, shining a light on the darkness, and finding hope and healing. Because that's what this channel is going to be all about. It's going to be about breaking myths of abuse, helping survivors on their path to healing. I figured out how to do it, and I can help you figure out how to do it. Let me know in the comments what's one way you can help expose the darkness and support survivors, because that's what this channel is all about, supporting survivors and shining a light on the darkness. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me on my journey, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.